in. We have breaking news at the moment, which is some Iranian missiles heading to Jordan. Claims are being that they have been intercepted, or at least one has been intercepted, but that is by American media. We'll have to wait and see what the ramifications are. There's also reports of possibly Israeli jets heading to Iran as well. Lots to speak about. We also have clashes in Syria at the moment and various other things. So we're going to speak about that and many other things with former Unit 8200 member Shaiel Ben Ephraim. Shaiel, thanks so much for joining us. How are you?
Sure, always a pleasure. I'm great. How about you?
I'm doing great. I hope. Thanks for joining us. I appreciate it. So Shaiel, give us your thoughts about the breaking news. First of all, what's your thoughts?
Yeah, I'm not surprised. There's what's happening right now is that the two sides are trying to make the reality on the ground more beneficial for their interests, and that involves sort of signaling the importance of various issues to the two of them. Right, the United States is trying to get Iran to sort of sacrifice Lebanon, and Lebanon and Iran is trying to get the United States to make compromises on the Straits of Hormuz and what can go through there. So the best way to look at all these attacks is not so much as warfare, especially since there's not a lot of Iranian soldiers or American soldiers being killed, but instead is kind of signaling the red lines that each one has for the continued development of the of this not ceasefire but post-war reality. I think that the mistake that a lot of people are making is they're looking at the MOU document as if it matters, and they're looking at whether or not there's going to be a continuation of it and a final deal. And I don't think there will be a final deal. What's going to happen now is the two sides are going to sort of struggle to create a reality that's more conducive to each one's interests. And so I wouldn't take any of these attacks all that seriously. They're going to continue. And of course, people might get killed and hurt, but this doesn't signal a return to full conflict between the United States and between Iran.
Why don't you think there's going to be a deal at the end?
Because they're not going to be able to agree on the amount of money released and on the nuclear issue. Those are two things that I think they absolutely can't agree on for political reasons. And both negotiators have a lot of internal domestic issues. You know, in the United States, we know a lot about the attacks that Trump is receiving from pro-Israel sources. Even the Democrats are attacking him for being too, weak. They also want the return of war. Meanwhile, in Iran, the hardliners and Khamenei have given very little rope to the negotiators to make compromises. So I think that both sides have gone as far as they can go in terms of compromises, and the United States from now on is going to be very loath to release every single dollar that it releases, and it's going to be performance-based, and all of this will be to show who's more committed, who's willing to make sacrifices, but an actual deal I don't think is in the offing. They're too far apart on the important issues, and with midterms coming up, there's too much political volatility. So probably the smartest thing that Trump can do, and what he will do, is try to create an atmosphere where price of oil isn't too high without paying too much and making too many concessions.
So you mentioned that you don't think there'll be a deal on those two issues, and I do want to explore those issues with you. But just before we do, in terms of Lebanon, do you think that Lebanon isn't going to be an issue that basically makes sure the deal does? I think that's the reason why there won't be a deal. I think the other things are you can get to a deal on them, but the Lebanon issue you can't. And so that's my view, but I want to hear your thoughts. And if you look at the MOU, Article 1, that's in direct conflict with the deal made by Marco Rubio, the leader of Lebanon, and the leader of Israel. What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I don't think Lebanon is the most important issue for Iran. I think that Lebanon is an issue that they're using in order to get concessions elsewhere. Israel is not going to be withdrawing from Lebanon. That's not achievable, or it's not going to happen anytime soon. And I think that Iran would be willing to trade concessions there for concessions elsewhere on issues that are actually existential to them, like their economy and like their nuclear issue. Lebanon is another country. it involves a proxy of theirs, and therefore it involves their ability to sort of project power elsewhere. But it's not a matter of survival for Iran. For the United States, it's also not a core issue. One of the main reasons the United States is worried about it is because the Gulf states are very concerned about Lebanon, which they see as their proxy. But I think I see the deal in Lebanon as sort of a half-assed attempt to look like they're doing something. I don't see it as a serious agreement. I don't see it as a serious deal. I don't see anyone taking these ceasefires particularly seriously. So to me, Lebanon is a sideshow to everyone aside from, of course, Israel and Hezbollah. But to Iran and the United States, they're overemphasizing its importance for various political reasons. I don't think that's at the center of the issues between the United States and Iran. Rather, it's a different issue that's been sort of tacked onto it.
Yeah, I know. I don't agree. I think that there's two reasons for Lebanon. One is it's obviously the forward front for the war. The second thing is in terms of because there's been a very much an understanding that the Israelis want to take out the resistance in Lebanon and then later go after Iran. And that's the first element. The second element is the support of this axis of resistance. There's the fact that the Lebanese did jump into this war. I think if Iran was to abandon Lebanon, they would not only lose worldwide support, but even within their country, there's a chance of a rebellion or a revolution. If you look at the people protesting on the streets, they all have their flags of the resistance in Lebanon, as well as their own national flag. What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think we're over dramatizing what's happening in Lebanon right now. There, neither of the two extremes that people are talking about are going to occur. Hezbollah is not going to be defeated. Israel talking about Hezbollah being defeated, that's not achievable and not attainable. It's a fantasy Israel's selling to itself for political reasons. Meanwhile, Israel is not going to withdraw from Lebanon, at least not until there's a brand new government in charge. And even then, I would be surprised. But until then, it's absolutely a non-starter. So neither of those two things is going to happen. So I don't know what abandoning Lebanon exactly means. What actually could happen realistically is that the level of the fighting in Lebanon will go down. There's no chance of any really extreme solutions or resolutions in Lebanon. That's what you're seeing here is a lot of political framing. Hezbollah trying to frame itself and Iran trying to frame itself as the protector of Lebanon, and Israel trying to frame itself as fighting a war against terrorism that will defeat Iran and Hezbollah once and for all. Reality is a lot less dramatic than that. Whatever deals are reached in Lebanon are going to be ignored by everyone, and it's all theater in my opinion. Hezbollah has an strong interest in continuing to fight Israel because it's actually showing a lot of efficiency, as I saw your previous guest say, in killing Israeli soldiers, taking out Israeli tanks. So Hezbollah is really restoring the image that it lost as an efficient barrier against Israeli expansionism, right? Israel, meanwhile...
What did you say? That's right, they're losing what?
Sorry?
What did you just say that? Did you just cut off the last sentence? You said Hezbollah is losing...
No, I said that Hezbollah was losing some of their image in the previous round, okay, which they've now restored, successfully restored. And it's in their interests to end this stage of the war or conflict or whatever as a success. And they're not there. Obviously, if they obey this agreement, which of course they won't, that would end their success. So why would they do that? Meanwhile, Israel... the entire modus operandi of this government, this specific government, is to fight against Iran. That's Netanyahu's, claim to fame. That's his strategic goal in life. So if he withdraws, he will be admitting complete and total defeat. And that's something that he absolutely can't do. Even if he loses a lot more soldiers, he can't admit to defeat. So this is just going to continue in where it is. I don't think Israel is going to expand a lot further than they have now because that will only tilt, I believe, the strategic balance against them. They'll be more overstretched. They'll be more exposed. Hezbollah will have more support. So that will make Israel weaker. But if they withdraw in any discernible manner, they're going to be admitting defeat. So the only thing that I think Israel can do over the next few months is just hold on. And I don't think Iran is going to give up the money that it could have unfrozen because Israel is going to hold on. Because the truth is, the United States, unless it was willing to do things that it's absolutely not willing to do, like completely disown Israel, punish Israel in a way that it's just not going to do, then the whole deal would fall apart. I don't think Iran is willing to make the whole deal fall apart. They want to make sure that it seems like they're 100% behind Hezbollah, but there's limits to that. They still want their money. They want to save their economy, and they want sort of the United States to leave them alone in a status quo that favors them. So that's why the two sides are signaling to each other what they're committed to, what they care about, and that's the best way to understand all these attacks.
So, I mean, look, I don't totally... so I agree with you that I don't think the Israelis are going to leave. Where I think I disagree, and we're going to have to wait and see, because maybe some people actually do agree with you, especially people who follow me now. They kind of feel... There's a few people who are not too happy with the way Iran's going, but I don't think Iran will abandon Lebanon. I don't think Iran will abandon the resistance. If they were willing to do that, they would have had this deal a very long time ago, because that's what's really been upholding or stopping this deal from occurring. Trump's been begging for negotiations since week 2. And so I think that's where we are. But I guess we're never going to know until we wait and see. And I do think that that's going to be the major crux of stopping any form of deal. Because the other element of this is the US can't do anything. They can't go to war. You saw yesterday's attacks. What you saw was US, the day before the Singaporean vessel hit. Sorry, Iran hit the Singaporean vessel. US hits. Iran hits back, but it isn't a strong hit. And I was very critical of the response, because I knew that when your response is minimal, that what happens is the Americans and the Israelis take advantage of that and then escalate. And that's what happened the next day. They tried it again with another vessel. They attacked Iran. The attack on Iran was quite weak, and Iran responded very strongly, hitting 8 different locations. We saw the damage. And so I think something like that is going to make the Americans more scared. And so they're going to be willing to go to the negotiation table. What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I agree with you. That's basically what I'm saying. There's a lot of signaling here. How hard am I willing to hit? What am I willing to hit? Under what circumstances am I willing to hit it? That's exactly what's happening here. And Iran is trying successfully so far to show that it's very committed to its interests without escalating to the point of a complete return to the war. I think that Iran has more leeway than it's used. I don't think the United States has any intention of renewing, but there's a limit. There's places they could escalate that would be too much and would force Trump to respond. So there's a lot of signaling. Iran is keeping what it wants.
But Trump can respond, right? Like that attack yesterday. So the attack by Iran since the attack on US has been significant.
Yes.
Ordinarily, the old America wouldn't have allowed that to go. They would be responding significantly. If Trump doesn't respond, that's capitulation.
Trump will respond. There will be American responses. That's not the question. The question is what level of response. Is it a level of response that will force Iran to escalate more? The answer to that is no. I think that what the United States is going to try to do is try to keep the flame at the same level or slightly lower it. There's different kinds of attacks. There's attacks that signal we're attacking the kind of targets we didn't attack before, like infrastructure, for example. And then there's the same targets that we've attacked before, like anti-air missiles, et cetera, which already most of them have been incapacitated. So each one sends a message. Are we doing something we did before, or are we escalating to new levels? This is the sort of language of war, especially the Middle Eastern language of war, is while you're negotiating. And what Iran is doing is exactly the right thing from its perspective. It's showing the United States we're not willing to give up on our red lines, but we also want the process to keep going. The United States, the cleverest thing they did in all this, they lost the war. We all know that, but they kept some leverage. They kept some leverage by keeping the money, a lot of money frozen, and the unfreezing depends on Iranian performance. So Iran needs to keep this going, but also signal that the red lines aren't being transgressed. I think they're doing that quite successfully. And that's what we're seeing so far. And again, regarding Lebanon, I agree with you that Lebanon is not going to be abandoned, but also the optimal outcome from Iran's perspective is that Hezbollah comes out of this stronger, while Iran gets the unfrozen money as well, right? They want to balance those two outcomes. Right now, it seems very likely that Iran will come out of this with a victory on both fronts. And that's what they're trying to get as much money as they can out, get a viable nuclear program at the end of this. I think that they are aiming for that. They should be aiming for that for their own survival. Straits of Hormuz, which is open at their discretion. And they've achieved that. They may not achieve getting the tolls that they want and all that, but what they have achieved and will achieve in the long term is that basically they decide if the Straits of Hormuz are open or not, and everyone accepts that that's just reality, right? And meanwhile, Hezbollah in Lebanon, by the time this is over, if they play their cards right, there's no way of knowing how it's going to end, could be much stronger than it is now, could be, and it's definitely stronger than it was 3-4 months ago. So what Iran is doing is you're looking at it in a two dichotomous manner. They're trying to balance all these interests while they were under threat of survival just a few months ago. And now they're incrementally advancing all these interests quite successfully. Now, they can't 100% have Hezbollah beat Israel, certainly not anytime soon. They can't get all the money unfrozen. I don't think that's possible because that'll involve reaching agreements on things that I don't think they can reach agreement on. And they probably can't turn the Straits of Hormuz into their own private lake the way they want to. But they can get leverage on each and every one of those to an extent that they didn't have before, coming out of it far ahead. And that involves balancing all the interests, not sacrificing Lebanon for the other, but rather balancing all the interests. And I think out of all of those, Lebanon is the least important just because it's not survival. Rather, it's influence in another part of the Middle East. But there's no reason at all for Iran to abandon Lebanon. Rather, it's a question of what interest do they prefer at what moment. Right now, I don't think Lebanon's the most important thing, but they're gaining a lot of leverage in Lebanon by at least pretending that it's a very important element in their interests. They're not going to give it up unless they have a very good reason to give it up. But I'm just saying it's not their primary interest.
Yeah, I just disagree with almost everything you said there, but let me just give some breaking news.
That's what you have me on.
Yeah, exactly. So some breaking news. The US and Iran have agreed to halt strikes on each other with plans to meet on Tuesday in Qatar to address concerns over the Strait of Hormuz. It says it's unclear who from the US delegation will be sent over for the negotiations, but the negotiations will be happening on Tuesday. So this is, again, the US capitulating, right? The US got hit very hard yesterday, the US bases, and they realize they can't step up to the Iran.
I think capitulation is too dramatic a word. What we basically have is Iran has escalation dominance, which is amazing. You would expect the U.S. to have escalation dominance, but they don't, for the simple reason that Iran is willing to withstand pain that the United States is not, right? One of the mistakes that people make about escalation dominance.
What was the pain they initiated over the last 2 days?
Pain towards who? Pain the United States is experiencing, or pain that Iran is experiencing?
You said Iran can endure pain. Now, I agree with you in a holistic sense. Iran can indeed endure pain. I'm asking you.
Not enjoy pain, withstand pain.
Endure, like take in.
Oh, draw in. Okay.
Yeah, endure. E-N-D-U-R-E. So it's the accent. It's the northern accent. But what I was saying was, but if you look at the US attacks over the last 2 days, they've been a joke. Like, they've not hit, what pain is there? Like, they've hit sand and they've hit nothing. We saw the video. Me and Larry Johnson, who's former CIA, were laughing at how meek the attack was.
The attacks right now are like I said, they're kind of meaningless. The pain that was inflicted was during the intense part of the war. Right now, it's me. You're 100% correct. When I talk about pain, I'm not talking about what's happening now. What's happening now, like I said before, is signaling. It's signaling. It's not real attacks. That doesn't mean I'm
no. But how is this not capitulation? That's what I want to answer. How is this not U.S. capitulating right now?
U.S. capitulation would be them giving up on what they believe are their main interests, which is they would allow Iran
No,
determine.
look, I don't mean capitulation in a holistic sense. I think that's the MOU is very much towards Iran's favor. That would be an example of capitulation. I'm talking about within this limited element of strikes that's occurring, the old US would not have allowed Iran to hit them as hard as they did last night and just say, let's just talk about it.
Okay, well, we're just talking on different levels. When I use the word capitulation, I'm looking at a complete surrender from one side against the other.
They just surrendered.
What I'm seeing here is that there's an ongoing battle between two sides where one side, Iran, has the upper hand. I don't see that the United States has surrendered. It could end up with the United States surrendering. That wouldn't. I know what you mean when you said capitulation, but I think capitulation is a strategic term, and the United States might end up capitulating strategically. It's not impossible. We're just not there yet. What that would look like is the United States allowing Iran to determine who goes through the Straits of Hormuz, how, which is what Iran's trying to do, like trying to get people, not to go near Oman, for example, and to charge tolls. And the other thing would be to have the freedom to do whatever they want with their nuclear program. Those are two things that if the United States capitulates, will occur. We're not there. It could be that Trump will end up there. That will involve Iran continuing to play its cards as strongly as possible, and Trump just completely giving up on the Iranian war, feeling like he has nothing more that he can achieve. What he's trying to do now, the best comparison to what he's trying to do now is the Vietnam policy of the United States under Nixon, trying to achieve peace with honor when you've basically already lost the most important battles, right? That's what we're seeing now. Nixon played that game for years. And the question is, how long can the United States play this game? So that's what we're seeing right now. Capitulation is something that could occur down the line in a few months. We'll see. If Iran plays its cards right, it could end up in that position.
We shall see. The issue you've got is, what's your you talk about the it was a few points you made. You said Iran would be willing to abandon Lebanon essentially, or the resistance. You also said, no, I thought you said they'd make a deal without it.
No, I don't think Iran has to abandon Lebanon. I think they have a balance that they can play, which is what they're doing now, where they can achieve certain things in Lebanon while lowering the flames in Lebanon. It's a false dichotomy that people create. There's a lot of drama in the way you phrase things. I don't know, it's the way you see the world. If it's for clicks, it's, you like to dramatize things, which is fine. But things aren't going to be as dramatic as you put them. Iran's not going to say, fuck you, Hezbollah. I don't know if I'm allowed to curse here. We're not going to support you anymore. It's over. Goodbye.
Right.
And that's just not going to happen.
Right.
And United States is not going to say that to Israel either. There's going to be different shades. And what's going to happen is that Iran will be willing to make some concessions on Lebanon temporarily.
Like what?
Like telling Hezbollah, for example, to stop firing at some point in order to allow
Hezbollah's only firing when Israel fires.
They could actually tell Hezbollah not even to fire back.
That is surrendering. So you're saying this isn't. Well, listen, this is abandoning, right? You're basically, what you just said now is, you're saying that Iran would tell Hezbollah, Israel can fire at you, you do not fire back. If that's not surrendering and capitulation, or if that's not basically betrayal, what is it? Take the hits and don't do anything.
That's normal Middle Eastern politics.
That's
just
not.
a few days.
What are you talking about? That's resistance.
Listen, just a few days ago, Trump told Israel, when it was at a sensitive moment in the negotiations, don't fire at Hezbollah. And the Israeli soldiers in southern Lebanon were given orders not to fire back, and they were in shock. They ran to the Israeli press. They said, we've been given orders not to shoot back. What's going on? Because there was a sensitive moment in negotiations where Trump wanted Israel to stop causing problems. Then a few days later, Israel did whatever it wanted. Now it's blowing up tunnels and God knows what else it's doing. There could be a moment in the negotiations between Iran and the United States where Iran says to Hezbollah, stop doing anything. We want to get this X amount of money unfrozen. Then when this is over, we're going to give you more weapons. We're going to back you. Do what you want with Israel. That is normal Middle Eastern politics. There's no need to dramatize this to the point of abandonment.
That's false. What you're saying is false. So that did not happen. There was never a scenario where Trump told Israel or orders was given to Israel that if they were fired upon, do not fire. There was not even an instance where the resistance fired on Israel and the Israelis didn't fire back. Heck, the only time the resistance ever fired at Israel is when Israel fired at them. So this is all false. You just framed it incorrectly. There's never been a scenario.
All I can tell you is that Israeli sources for days were panicking about
Zionist propaganda. That never happened. There was never an instance where the resistance in Lebanon fired at Israel without being fired out on themselves. You're basically saying that there was an instance, which is just false.
Several days.
Sorry?
Several days.
Yeah, you're okay. Even worse, you're now saying there were several days where the resistance in Lebanon were firing at Israel and Israel wasn't responding. That never happened.
At the soldiers in southern Lebanon.
That never happened. That never happened.
Well,
the instance where the Israeli Zionist occupation forces were fired on was solely when they were themselves firing at innocent civilians and firing at the resistance, and then the resistance responded to them. There's never been an instance where it was the other way around.
That's not how I see this conflict at all.
Obviously, you don't. You're Unit 8200. Of course, you're not going to see it that way. It's like, what's going on?
Hold on. If you're going to criticize me for the correct reasons. Israel is the invader in Lebanon. It's illegally invading Lebanon. It is killing civilians in violation of international law. Israel is the bad guy here in terms of the macro. But once you're involved in a conflict in a country, people are going to be firing at each other. You know, the one side will be firing at the other side. That's just how conflicts work. It's not as neat as saying, okay, just one side will fire, the other side will only respond. There's going to constantly, the two sides will be striving to engage. And because if you don't do that, then you're putting your own soldiers at risk. And that's equally true for Hezbollah and IDF. The IDF is seeking an advantage. The Hezbollah is seeking an advantage. If you're the one who's not initiating anything, you're putting your soldiers at risk. That's just simple.
You're proving my point now. You're proving my point. Because your initial claim was... No, but you're proving my point because you're saying both sides are firing at each other.
Yes.
I agree both sides are. I'm saying the initiator is Israel. The responder is Hezbollah. Your claim, though, was that there was Israelis had given the orders that Hezbollah for multiple days... the Israelis were told for multiple days, and it happened for multiple days, that the resistance fired on Israel and they didn't respond. And I'm saying that's false. That never happened. You're proving my point. Now you're saying both sides were firing at each other. I'm saying they were firing at each other, but the initiator was Israel.
Not during these few days. Overall, absolutely. Israel's the initiator. If Israel went into Lebanon, Israel broke this ceasefire to begin with. Israel's the initiator. You're getting bogged down about a few days. The reporting has been in all over the media about this. I've talked to Israeli sources about this.
Zionist media.
It's over now. It's over now. Now Israel is initiating. And the only reason Israel didn't initiate is not out of Israel's goodwill. Israel wanted to continue to initiate. It was because Trump asked them to stop so that he could get success in the negotiations. And that's how you need to understand what's happening in Lebanon. Lebanon is, from the perspective of the United States and Iran, not the perspective of Hezbollah and Israel, a sideshow. And they use it to gain concessions in what they see as the main arena. That's an unpopular view that everyone keeps pushing back on, but that's exactly what I'm seeing here.
It's a false view. That's why you're basically saying Lebanon is a sideshow. In reality, for the Israelis, it's not a side.
Not to Israel. To Iran and the U.S., it's a sideshow because they're not involved.
No. So
not directly.
Again, false again. So the thing is, let's be clear on this. So it's not a sideshow for Israel. You confirm that. It's not a sideshow.
And not to Hezbollah.
As I just said, and you confirm that. Yeah. It's not a sideshow for the resistance. You also confirm that. For America, they just have no power. They're powerless because Israel is controlling the United States of America. But in terms of Iran, it's quite clearly not a sideshow. If it was a sideshow, Iran would have made a deal with the United States of America weeks ago, months ago. The thing that stopped the deal from occurring because they've not even talked about the nuclear yet. The thing that stopped the deal from going was because of Lebanon. And as soon as concessions, when they were about to strike Israel for hating Lebanon, the sideshow that you're talking about, when they were about to strike Israel with missiles, with Khorram Shah missiles, what happened? The sideshow became the main show, even your own sideshow, because the US immediately gave concessions. Why did they give concessions for a sideshow? They immediately said that Lebanon will have sovereignty, essentially guaranteeing that Israel was going to leave. If it's such a sideshow, why is it that Trump basically bent to the demands of Iran based on this sideshow? Why did Iran make that the main point? Because there was nothing else in the negotiations that had changed other than one other thing, which was the blockade was meant to be lifted after 30 days. The blockade just ended up lifting immediately. We know now that the Americans had to do that because of oil reserves and various other things. So the sideshow was the whole main show. So what do you mean?
The end result of the whole negotiation over Lebanon was a deal that ended up favoring the Lebanese government and Israel remaining in Lebanon forever. This was not an event where the United States capitulated on Lebanon. In fact, they held firm on Lebanon in the end and signed an insane deal that only allows, with what you have noted, I've seen on social media correctly as a betrayal from the Lebanese government, allowing Israel to continue to occupy Lebanon. And I think a lot of that is the U.S. signaling to Iran, we're not going to give up on this, and Iran firing to say, we're not going to give up on this. But this is not the main issue in the negotiations, because the main issue for Iran has to be their survival. And their survival depends on money, their survival depends on the Straits, and their survival depends on the nuclear program. It does not depend on Lebanon. Lebanon is a luxury for Iran. It's them wielding influence somewhere else. And that's why they will see that always as less important in the rankings of their interest. It's still important, but like I said, the choices aren't between completely capitulating there and destroying the deal over it. You can find different places in between, and invariably we're going to find different places in between. This deal I don't think will be signed. The final deal won't be signed, but it's not going to be because of Lebanon. It's going to be because of the nuclear issue, most likely. I don't think that's soluble.
Okay, so again, what you said was completely wrong, because the Lebanon deal that we're talking about isn't the MOU. That just demonstrates that when you deal with Israel, when you deal with US, which is Zionist controlled, they never fulfill their agreement, because the MOU was very clear. The MOU was no attacking Lebanon anymore, leave Lebanon. That was the deal that America capitulated to in order to save Israel. Then what happened was the US, being US, because they're controlled by the Israeli lobby, because the decision making has to be based on Israel, Marco Rubio, who essentially is Miriam Adelson's main pet, essentially went behind everyone's back and created this deal, which, as you said and as I said, is a traitorous deal, because the Lebanese president, which is separate to Iran, made a deal with Israel in cohorts, cahooting with them, which essentially ensures that the Israeli occupation forces remain in their country. They occupy their country and possibly even cause civil war in their own country. This is in separate to the MOU deal. This is in conflict with the deal. So this isn't the US demonstrating that they now, this isn't that the Iran conceded to Lebanon. This is betrayal once again by the United States of America, which has always happened. This isn't a unique thing. This is historic. This is why the deal won't happen, because anytime you have an agreement, US, because of Israel largely speaking, renege on the deal. That's what's happened there. It had nothing to do with betrayal by Iran. It had nothing to do with Iran not caring about it. Iran made sure, no, I just said not just caring about either, or seeing it as a minimal issue. They made sure that it was an important issue. They had it as Article 1, very concrete, very specific. I have my issues with the MOU because I think some of the language in it on it's vague. But the one article there was no vague language on, was very specific and specified, was very boxed in, was Lebanon. the issue that you saying they care about so much, they didn't even write about it clearly. Like, nobody knows when the money's coming out, how it's coming out, what tranches it's going to be, in what manner it's going to come out. This is why there's disagreement about whether it's going to be spent on US products or not. But the bit that they were very specific about was Lebanon. Sorry, go ahead.
But that's exactly my point. So if you ever deal in diplomacy, you know that the more specific the language is, it's because the sides could agree to it more. And the more vague the language is, the more it's because you have to put it off because you can't actually reach an agreement on those issues. And that's why the nuclear issue is so vague, for example, because no agreement can be reached. The nuclear issue is not even in there. Yeah, well, exactly. So that needs to be postponed. The United States is insisting on that being in the final deal. If the United States decides that that doesn't have to be in the final deal, that will be, and to use your phrase, capitulation by the United States. If we reach that point, that will be an Iranian victory.
Wait, why is there a disagreement on the nuclear issue? Explain to me what's the major issue in the nuclear issue that you think that they won't disagree on.
Well, the United States wants zero enriched uranium in Iran, and Iran, I believe, wants to have at least the potential to have a nuclear armed program in the country, and the United States wants to make sure that they don't.
Wait, what do you mean by nuclear armed program? 1 second. So when you say US wants doesn't want them to have enrichment, do you mean 0% enrichment?
They want all the enrichment to be entrusted to a third country.
No, so that's the high. No, 1 second. So there's two different elements, and I know like people do get confused about this. So the first element is the 60% highly enriched uranium. Iran always wanted to give that up. They were willing to not give it up in the sense of they were willing. I know myself. I spoke to the negotiators. For them, that was always a point of negotiation. That was because you're saying they won't move from that. But I'm talking about the ability to enrich uranium. Are you saying the US's position is there's going to be 0% enrichment?
That's what they want. But
Trump said the opposite. Trump recently said that actually other countries around them is enriching uranium, so we're going to allow them to enrich uranium.
That is Trump signaling that he might actually be willing to make concessions on that.
Okay, so so that's the one issue that he's already willing to make concession on. So what about the nuclear issue? Do you think that he's going to be
pushed? He's going to be pushed really hard on that issue by a lot of the people that you mentioned.
Exactly. So we're back to the same problem.
But
it's always those guys.
100%. Yeah, 100%. I agree with you. This is an issue that Trump is going to find. If you think that he's had trouble with Israel and its supporters on other things, this is an issue where he's going to find himself completely outgunned and alone, most likely, unless there's a complete realignment in Washington, D.C., which there's some signs of, but not enough. I don't think this is an issue he's going to be able to actually make concessions on, and I think that that's going to end up torpedoing the entire deal. Regarding Lebanon, what we saw there is that the United States had no intention of ever following what it said in the MOU. And there's also no intention of Israel ever following what's in this new agreement. It's all bullshit. Both agreements. Israel will continue to sit in southern Lebanon. Hezbollah will continue to be supported by Iran. This current conflict will end with the advantage to Hezbollah, but without a knockout victory for anyone. That's what we're going to see. So there's really no point in getting up in arms and scuttling the entire negotiation over Lebanon. That's not a front that either side really fully controls their proxies or wants to fully control their proxies necessarily. So that's why I consider it a sideshow. It doesn't mean it's not important to the two sides.
Yeah, I just I think we disagree on that, but we're just gonna end up repeating. I think that they do care about it. I think I think it's the main reason why I knew this deal, because you said throw the deal in the bin, and so the reason why I know the deal, and I agree with you on that element of what you said, because the reason you need to throw the deal in the bin is quite simple, because Israel's going to make sure the deal doesn't go through. And the reason they're going to make sure the deal doesn't go through is because they're an expansionist country. They want to take South Lebanon. They want to even possibly take Iran. Now they know they haven't got the ability to do so. And without the United States of America's help, they just simply can't definitely they can't attack Iran. And in terms of Lebanon, the thing is they can bomb from the air, but they're getting dominated on the ground. And so the deal that's occurred is just the US acting like the US did. Now, the other thing you mentioned is about the Strait of Hormuz. You said You said it's not going to be the private lake. Can you explain why it's not going to be the private lake?
Because they're going to reach a deal that accommodates all the different sides. The United States has the ability to reward the opening of the Straits of Hormuz through various economic incentives that would most likely exceed the benefit that Iran gets out of dominating the Straits of Hormuz. I don't see that the best option for Iran in the long term is to try to close it. I see that the best option that Iran has is to open it while maintaining the threat to be able to close it. That seems to me like the best option. I think what Iran has now is a rare chance that I think that they will seize to open the area economically while maintaining leverage with the backing of China as well, rather than doing it through domination, but doing it through consensus and through agreement, I think is the best thing for them, while enjoying unfrozen money from the United States, while enjoying investment from China, while improving relations with the Gulf states. I think that if Iran plays the cards right, using the escalation dominance that it has now, it can have a more sustainable future in that region. And if it tries to dominate it by the use of force, it's not going to be sustainable. They're going to have all these forces aligned against them that are not going to allow them the stability that they need in order to recover from all the shocks that they've had recently. So if they're smart, and I think they are smart, they use that dominance in order to improve their economy rather than in order to try to dominate the region militarily.
Okay, guys, make sure you like this video. Let's try and get as many people in here as possible. Were you with Trump when he was getting convinced to go to this war? Because you try and persuade why basically giving up on key things is a good thing. It's not going to work, Shaiel, on here. It's not going to work, indeed. We're not Trump. You're not going to convince us. But anyway, the point, jokes aside, the point was, look, Strait of Hormuz is actually critically important. And the reason why it's critically important is because if you keep control over it, and it is your private lake, you're able to maintain something that is even more important than any of those other things. You talk about money, but money comes and goes. The other thing is sanctions. The issue with sanctions is, if you look at the United States of America, and I mentioned this in the previous interview, and their history, and you know about this deal. They made a deal with the MOU. They reneged within a week. You can't even trust these people for a week. So what will happen with the sanction? And you saw after the hostage situation, 444 days, where the Iranians actually let out the women and the people of color because they said that you are also oppressed in the United States of America. But put that aside. After 444 days, Trump agreed to... That's funny. Trump agreed to... I just seen a super chat. It's funny. Okay, so Trump agreed after... Not Trump, sorry. US agreed after 444 days to release the sanctions, to relieve sanctions. What did they do? This was the major Algeria Accords. Within a couple of years, a few years, 3 years to be exact, they put the sanctions back on. So you can never trust the United States of America. If someone like Marco Rubio comes back into presidency, the sanctions will come back on within 2 years. This is why the Strait of Hormuz is critically important. It's critically important.
I agree with you, but the smartest thing you can do is maintain the threat of closing it if sanctions are put on again. You remove the sanctions and you maintain the potential to close it again if sanctions are restored.
I disagree.
Trust but verify.
I disagree. You can't get into a situation where you keep on opening and closing the Strait of Hormuz. It will just damage all viability in the future. What you need to do right now, which they're doing quite rightly, is to maintain and demonstrate that they're going to be controlling it. So when America tried to do this kind of Omani water, tried to skirt past it, they stopped them, and hence why the 2 strikes. You maintain control of the Strait of Hormuz, because if you control the Strait of Hormuz, and that means people paying tolls, or even if it's not tolls, paying a fee, even if it's not fee, registering with you to go through the strait. So you do make it your private lake. But what you then do is you make sure that you have control over it. And then what happens is, from that, you're able to create larger trade agreements. So someone like South Korea and Japan, who have trade with the United States of America, essentially are vassals. They know the Americans abandoned them during this war. And so what you can say to them is, listen, Japan, you can have complete access on the Strait of Hormuz. When America attacks us, if they do in the future, if we have to close the strait, you will always have navigation through it. Let's make an overarching trade agreement. You could buy some of our steel. We'll buy some of your tech. and you could build onto that. So because where I disagree with is when you said it's not their private lake. I'm saying you need to make it your private lake, and they're doing that, and they're making the right moves to do so. What's your thoughts on that?
This is the usual thing when we're pretending to disagree when we're not.
No, we're not pretending, blood. We totally disagree with each other.
We agree.
I never agree with the Mossad. I never agree with the Mossad. God.
He agrees. He works for the Mossad. I'm telling you.
That's fake news.
This is where we totally agree. Iran needs to use its or will, never mind needs to, I mean should from its perspective, use its leverage to get as much as it can out of the Straits of Hormuz. Private lake would mean they have complete and total control. That's not how the world works. There's other stakeholders involved, not just the United States, but everyone else involved, including countries you talked about, like Japan, whoever. There's a lot of stakeholders involved. Iran takes their advantage in order to turn it into a reality that's beneficial to it in the long term. That's exactly what I'm saying. You're saying what I'm saying. A private lake would be a situation where if anyone tries to go through without their permission, they're going to immediately bomb them.
Exactly. That's what's going to happen.
Where it's very much controlled by force. What Iran will want to achieve is where the threat of their use of force and their escalation dominance is not an everyday thing, but rather is sort of hinted at. That's how hegemony, that's how power works. It works best behind.
But you prove my point, Shaiel. I didn't say you need to bomb it because control is what?
So we agree.
You control. No, but listen. Like for example, I control my kids, right? They'll do what I say. It doesn't mean I'm gonna hit them, right? But there's control there. And actually, once you do what Iran's done, you strike that Singaporean vessel, you strike the next vessel, you strike the next 20 that are gonna try and do the same thing. You get them under order, and then they know Iran has control, and they don't try it again. They always make sure they pay the piper.
Yeah, that's
how you make it your private lake, just like you made your family your private family. But this is so straight to Hormuz. You said unfrozen assets. So you think the unfrozen assets are because what the unfrozen assets? What's happened on that up to now is there was an agreement for the unfrozen assets. The Americans were going to release it when Israel was going to be bombed. The Americans said we'll release it sooner. Obviously, they lied again because they've not been released. But the unfrozen assets have not been released. The Americans, there is reports allegedly, this is by, for example, Larry Johnson, who said that the Qataris and Saudis have said we're going to guarantee it irrespective. I doubt that to be, I'm not sure about that. But that being said, the Americans have not paid up. They're saying that you need to buy American products. The Iranians want the money to be able to spend it how they want. What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so the United States is not going to just give anything without Iran coughing blood to get it. That's how this is set up. That's the only leverage the United States has that's meaningful is this money. Meanwhile, Iran has leverage, like we talked about, in particular in the Straits of Hormuz. So they're both going to try to use their leverage to get as much as possible. Now, because Iran has the escalation dominance, they're going to be able to secure a lot of that money. But the United States is not going to obey, as you said several times, is not going to obey anything. They're going to have to be forced into doing it, or at least cajoled into doing it through Iranian concessions, through Iranian attacks, through a combination of carrots and sticks, which is what both sides will do. Iran will be forced to an extent to behave on certain things in order to get the money. The United States will be forced to behave in order to get the Straits of Hormuz open, and both sides will cooperate to some extent to get Lebanon stabilized. This really isn't a situation where there's 100% opposed interests. What both sides want to achieve certain things, but both sides also want the other side to get something out of this deal so that they will continue to pay the dividends that are wanted. In Iran's case, getting the money from the United States, and in the American case, getting the freedom of transit and control over Hezbollah and all these sorts of things. So looking at it as a zero-sum game is missing the point. They're fighting over who has a bigger share of the cake and who has more leverage at any given time.
Yeah. Okay. Now, the other thing I wanted to talk to you about was no, I don't want to debate every single issue. You're meant to be interviewed, right?
Yes.
But look, the other thing is we have an agreement. Conversation is going to happen on Tuesday. We're seeing the Israelis expand. I'm just seeing now that they were trying to go into Syria, and
Israeli in Syria. Yeah, it's his name.
Israelis being Israeli, they're trying to occupy Syria. Now they have Jolani in their pocket, but the people of Syria, the residents of Syria were trying to block off the Israelis from going into their town, and the Israelis start firing on them.
Yeah.
What's your thoughts about this expansionism?
Yeah, I'm shocked at how little this has happened so far. And that definitely hints at what you're talking about, where Jolani is in Israel's pocket and definitely doing everything that he can to calm that front down, because Israel has gone into Syria. The international community is not covering it. They've killed people. They've taken land. They've taken livestock. They're expanding their footprint there all the time. They've said that they're not going to withdraw. It's only a matter of time before people in southern Lebanon take up arms they've already been some signs of it. There's been some organizations, but take up arms in a more concentrated and effective manner. This tactic that Jolani has had of trying to bury this issue to focus on other issues, I don't think is going to last in the long term. I'm kind of amazed at how little resistance Israel has had in Syria so far.
So another question I've got for you is, well, I'm just reading some of the chat. They're asking the question, what's your view on Palestine? Do you believe in a free Palestine?
Yeah, of course. I believe in a Palestine that's equal for all citizens.
Do you believe in
Zionism?
Awesome. And do you believe in it? Because I know someone said, ask him if he believes in free Palestine, or is he going to say, do you condemn Hamas? But the question to you is what's your view about Palestine? One state? Would you believe in a one-state solution or a two-state solution?
I will answer this, and then I have to go, like we said.
I believe. I thought you needed to go half-assed. Was it not?
No, I have to go. I'll have to go after this question. I apologize.
Okay,
but I will answer this for your viewers. I don't believe in a Zionist state. I don't, because it enshrines Jewish supremacy and gives Jews rights where Palestinians don't have rights. So I believe in any form of state that gives Palestinians equal rights, Arabs and Jews equal rights in the same country, called Palestine. So yeah,
equal voting rights as well.
Of course, equal voting.
Okay, we're on
That's
the same
most
page.
important right of all, because every other right comes from voting. You vote over what rights you get through that. So everything has to come from voting rights.
So one state solution with equal rights for all is basically what you said.
And the right of return to Palestinians.
Brilliant. I think we're in agreement there. I think it's the first thing we've agreed on, Shaiel.
See? There
you go, guys. That'll make you a lot more happy. Okay, so Shaiel, you need to head off, right?
I do, unfortunately.
Okay, so
thank you so much for having me.
No, I appreciate it. Thanks so much for coming on. I hope it wasn't. Hope I didn't upset you. It was just a light disagreement on your Mossad position. Joke. But the question to you is where can people find you, Shaiel?
The best place to find me is on Twitter at academic_LA, and also the Grand Scheme on Substack.
Okay, brilliant. So you got a Substack as well.
Yep.
Brilliant. Okay, cool. Thanks for that. Really appreciate it. Everyone should definitely check you out on there. Thank you so much for joining us.
See you next time.
Thank you so much. Right, that was Shaiel. Do give him a follow and check him out. And actually, I did remember, he did say to me at this time, I got mixed up with the timing myself. You know how it is, your boy gets mixed up. What did you guys think about that? What did you think? I don't know. What did you guys think about that? I'm just going to change the title of this, and then I'm going to think it, but let me know what your thoughts are. Someone said, I will not be finding... Good one. Find him at Ben Shapiro. Hilarious. He believes in making Lebanon the great Israel. But yeah, did he? I don't think he said... I don't know. But I've listened to this guest before. He didn't really talk about Palestine, but he wasn't in support of Israel. And well, we asked him about Palestine. He said one-state solution. One-state solution, equal rights for all. That's my position anyway. I do believe in a one-state solution, equal rights for all. Okay, what else we got? Loki said you did great, thanks. Sully buries that. They're just so easy. I didn't even like, I never even prep or anything for for it to be a debate. Like a lot of times it ends up becoming like that. I remember when I had Ray Casagrande on. I need to get him on again. But the thing is, I remember having him on, and I thought it was just going to be a normal interview, and I just asked him the questions, half asleep actually when I was asking the questions. And then next thing you know, he's like coming out with some mad things. And I was like, that's crazy. Like, I don't agree with anything you're saying there. And yeah, that was shocking. So we end up debating. So that in the end, not debating, I just disagreed with him. I didn't see this as a debate. If I'm debating someone, I'll be harsh and mean. Where did you find this fool, Sully? Well, it says he's unit 8200, and so I saw he's unit 8200, and he seems to be not a full-on Zio, seems. So I thought, okay, it's going to be interesting to have this guy on. Let's see what he's got to say. And I thought he would end up agreeing with us, and we're just going to politically go through things. But in the end, like, you know, with me, my problem is this. Like, a lot of people would let these things slide. But I have this issue where when whatever someone's speaking and I'm concentrating, and I notice certain words or language they use, I'm like, not going to allow that Hasbara to go. So when he said about, like, for example, to give you an example, and there's many such examples during that, when he was like, oh, the Strait of Hormuz is not going to be Iran's private lake, I'm like, what are you talking about? So I have to, like, decimate him on it. And then he's like, yeah, actually, we agree. And so that's one example of many examples. So I've got this thing where I'm like when I'm concentrating, I'm like I'm specifically listening and concentrate to each individual point, and I just like don't let things pass. So that would be an example of that. What else? Let me just give me 2 seconds. So I'm just changing the title to Sulaiman Ahmed. Okay, cool. Let's see what else you guys have got to say. Exactly, good one. Although, like, yeah, he was like, I'm dramatized. I was like, blood, what are you talking about? What bit is there to be dramatized? Like, it's very simple about what's going on. So that was crazy, to say the least. Let's see what else we got. Brilliant, Sully, most enjoyable, awesome. So just to let you know, guys, what's gonna happen, guys, make sure you like this video, subscribe to the channel, get your fans to subscribe. We're like about 100 away from 20,000, and that's like impressive. We've got that within what, 6-7 weeks or whatever. So if you can subscribe to the channel and have your notifications on, that would be awesome. That would be awesome. What I'm doing right now is I'm just changing the title because I changed it to Debate America Capitulate to Iran, but then I think it was more about will Iran abandon Lebanon, right? So I'm just changing the title. Let's see what else we got. What did you guys think? Thanks. You're the best. Oh, thanks. You know what it is? I was thinking of, and guys, just because we're having a chat with the chat, just a quick question to you guys. Because one of the things that I really love is debating. And obviously I enjoy doing the interviews, like debating and interviews are like the two things I enjoy more than anything else. And obviously I do the interviews, but then I'm not debating. And I was thinking about creating like a second channel where I debate, or making the Sulaiman Ahmed X channel into a debate channel. Because I feel like our audience, this audience doesn't really like debates. It likes more interviews. What's your thoughts on that? Or should I just be doing it on this channel? But then I'm worried if I do it on this channel, I might get banned. What's your guys' advice on that? Because I feel like like the audience I've created on X, they like very much don't like debates as much. Like they get frustrated very quickly about debates. Whereas on and so like, what's your thoughts on that? Yeah, well, Larry is not a debate. Larry's like my boy. Like he's my pops. Like he's like my almost surrogate pops. I ain't debating Larry. It's all love with Larry. It's like minor disagreements is where the great conversations occur. That ain't that. Thanks to Ali with the one more the gifted sub. Actually, there. Let me read the gifted subs as well. Thank you so much. You like debates, but I don't think everyone does. Defo is a separate debate channel. The chat, yeah, because the chat gets riled up, they get emotional. And I feel like this channel is a bit more like, I love my boomers, I love them a lot, but maybe they don't like the debates as much. Israel won't, Ali Ma says, Israel won't withdraw from Lebanon. Rather, IDF will be forced to leave, just like many times before. Give him the Scott Ritter special. Well, it won't be boot on the neck, will it? Because the Israelis, bro, they get smashed anyway. Ali Mar says, having flashbacks of the Shmuley debate. Yeah, the Shmuley debate was quite easy as well. Yeah, separate debate channel. I think so. But how would that be? Like what? Like I can organize debates, but then it'd be maybe like bringing random people up and debating. I know some people, what they do is do it on TikTok, where they'll debate on TikTok, because I think there's more of a debate culture on TikTok. I feel like on X, it's not as much there. I feel like people who listen to our spaces on X are more like into the news, into the breaking news. That's how I feel like over time, that's what it's become. The moral debate. Oh, that's a good name. Ladybird, do I have permission to use that debate? Name. Give me permission right now, and that's what the name will be. Well, I need her to give me permission because I don't want to take the name until she confirms I can use it. Or do you mean on this channel? But then so what I mean is that I was thinking in my head, like what I would do is I would like do my normal interviews, and then obviously my normal interviews normally end about 10 p.m. Eastern, and then go 1-2 hours on the separate channel in terms of debates. Yeah, I was thinking about using a separate channel for that. Okay, guys, make sure you like this video. Let's get the likes up. I just destroyed the Mossad. Anyway, like the videos, subscribe to the channel, have your notifications on. It's going to be fire. All right, what's going to happen is we're going to jump back on the space, and then what we're going to do is we're going to have Larry Johnson back at 8 p.m. Eastern. If there's any strikes, then we'll start immediately, although it doesn't seem like there's going to be any strikes. But yeah, that's the latest on that. Okay, brilliant. People are saying a separate debate channel. Okay, I'm going to do that. Okay, much love to each and every single one of you. Appreciate you guys on this YouTube channel. Appreciate you guys joining in. Appreciate you guys listening. And